Mr. Ranganath NK is a mechanical engineer from the College of Engineering, Guindy, Chennai, with management degree from XLRA Jamshedpur. With over 4 decades of experience in marketing, sales, design, project management, finance, HR, business strategy, and general management. He's been the president of the Madras Management Association in the past, the chairman of Tamil Nadu Council of CII, and the chairman of AEEE, Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy. During his 20 years in Grundfos Pumps, he not only set up the company and its production facilities, but also built the brand equity. He retired from Grundfos recently this year, but continues to represent them in initiatives on sustainability, energy, and water conservation. Currently, he's on the board of a few listed and other companies as an independent director. He's also part of the CII National Committee on Skill Development, Manufacturing, and chairs the CII Southern Region Committee of Skills, Education, and Job Creation. May I now invite Mr. Ranganath to address the delegates, please.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you present here and all those that are online watching this. And a special welcome to Mr. Krishnaswamy and Dr. Sujata to MMA. It feels nice to be back at MMA. Maybe I should remove this and speak, it's easier. Yeah, the building didn't look this way when I was president in MMA. It was very close to my office. But then some faces don't change, like all the secretariat. And I used to call him my boss at that point of time. I'm sure he drives Ravi also more than Danfoss drives you. So without the secretariat, we wouldn't have got where we are today. And I'm glad to see that MMA, when we got the bestest thing when I was president, it was the 3rd or 4th consecutive one, and now number 11. So it's amazing. So we're talking today about CSR and the decade of action. And decade of action is a phrase coined by the world leaders in September 2019, when they said that they have to look at speeding up the attainment of the sustainable goals, because we had only till 2030 to do this. So the alignment between SDGs and corporate social responsibility is very vital to ensure that we achieve these SDGs, because all the SDGs are based, or I would say they are corporate social responsibility put in nice blocks of 17 numbers. And it will be a very powerful mechanism to grow and to ensure that we attain these goals by 2030. Looking at it from this point of view, I'm not sure we would achieve all those goals. In fact, we are slow in some, we are okay in some, and we are negative in some compared to where we were in 2015. And that's rather sad. But mapping of SDGs and CSR initiatives will help most corporates and companies basically to sort of ensure that they are on the right track. So if you see what is CSR, it started off as a charity at one point of time. Maybe even thousands of years ago, there was charity being done, either by individuals or by organizations or by kings. Later on, charity and it was focused basically on human beings, predominantly. And then came philanthropy. The word changed to philanthropy, where more corporates came in, more individuals came in, and then it went from just total focus on individuals to perhaps all living beings. And now we have CSR, which was, all these were voluntary till a few years ago, till 2013, 14, I think, when the law came in India. CSR encompasses everything that helps us sustain this planet. Very often, I hear, and even on the portals of MMA in the past 10 years ago, I was laughing when people told me, if we don't do something, the earth will die or the world will die. We are stupid if we think the world will die. Human beings will die. Rest of the things will go on. Now we saw in this COVID pandemic, everything lived well and the world revived itself except for the human beings. The only thing that will disappear like dinosaurs are human beings. So there is a certain self-interest that we actually save this planet for ourselves. Very, very what you call selfish kind of motive, but it is motive enough to do if you really want to see human beings live. So the CSR Act came into being, I think, 13, 14, if I remember right. He's the expert on that. So what was voluntary became mandatory. Now, that's not a nice thing to happen per se, but I say that CSR Act was good in a way that it focused people into doing something, into action, which otherwise we might not have seen. Has it gone well from 2014 till now? He will probably talk more about it, but I'm not very satisfied, but we have made progress. In the beginning, I found unscrupulous people trying to get money from corporates and give you a CSR fund, we will do something. I also found unscrupulous politicians jumping into this with all kinds of NGOs. But all that is past. I think corporates are woken up. I remember my own discussion with the politicians says, sorry, every time you open your mouth, I think you're taking my money. I can't work with you that way. You tell us what you want to do. Anyway, I knew him very well, so I could speak this way, and I don't try to do things. So he said, okay, fine, I agree with your point of view. I said, most corporates would think this way. We told, why don't you tell us what to do? We will do it. You can take the credit if you want. We have no issues. But we want to see the job done. That's important. Implementation of what our intent is very vital. If we really need to see anything, leave alone CSR, have an impact on the ground, and more so CSR. So, what does SDG do? And what does CSR do? Basically, it classifies things that need to be done for a better and inclusive world. That's all we're looking at, a better and inclusive world for all living and sentient beings and for everything else. Because we are all interconnected. Very often I find sustainability in silos. It never works that way. You can sort of say that everything is interconnected. Your food security is connected to your water security, is connected to your economic security, is connected to your to the rest of the things in the world, to the climate. Ultimately, if you're just looking at one silo and ignoring others, you won't get the required impact. But at the same time, you can't go behind everything. So what is being done now is that corporates are picking up those silos that are their passion or what they are good at. Like for instance, Grundfos ourselves, we picked up SDG 6 and 13. 6 being water and sanitation, 13 being climate change. The Tatas have picked up 1, livelihood. Like these, many corporates have picked up various SDGs and are working towards it. And if all of us pick SDGs that we are good at or we like to do, and we spread out well, I'm sure we will achieve what we need to do, or what we set out to do, or what the UN set out to do in 2015. So the agenda, which was adopted by the UN in 2015, really put this into 17. You can look at the 17. I can't per se, I know what those 17 are, but I can't read it out now. But anything that you do in CSR, whether you do it personally or through a corporate, if you are able to tag it to a specific SDG, then you will see that we are all speaking the same language and we can really measure. What you cannot measure and verify, you cannot improve. Take for instance, we deal with water. So what we said, we should be very, very careful with water consumption. And before we preach this to others, we should do it in our own factory. So we've been trying to drive down the specific water consumption, whether it be on person basis or also on per pump basis that we produce. To the extent that we were the first green rated commercial building in India in 2005. But we have continuously improved, went from a gold to a platinum rating. Why? Because do we like to see this plaque in front of us? No. It is a way of binding yourself to a goal and making sure that you have a way of achieving it. So we started measuring every bit of water that we consumed. And we started recycling and reusing it. Mind you, we even collect all the condensate of these air conditioners that we run, and we collect the water back and we use that. We don't let out any sewage, we don't let out any grey water, we recycle everything. And when the rains come, we have 230 charge bore wells. We don't draw water, we pour water into it. That's when the rains come. So this is something that anybody can do. It's not rocket science. It's just that we took upon that this is what we need to do. So reports show that despite progress in a number of areas, I'm not talking just out of the blue, despite progress in a number of areas, we are still far behind in achieving the SDG goals by 2030. On water especially, we are behind. On livelihood, we are behind. On eradication of poverty, we are negative, especially with the impact of COVID. We have gone behind. So what has COVID done to this? It's basically a health crisis has become a human socio-economic crisis. The whole world is grappling with it without knowing what to do. We have a lot of what you call these vaccines that are coming up. We don't know how well they work. They are on a trial basis. But the progress is happening, and hopefully we will see a virus at least in the middle of next year, which can work on some of us. Until then, we have to change the way we are living, and this is a final example of this. You know, everybody in masks, and like I always like this little what you call cartoon that I see. In the past, if you wear a mask and go into a bank, you're a thief. Today, if you don't wear a mask and go into a bank, you're not allowed in. You know, it's a kind of change that has come about, and this decade of action, this 2020, 2030, that's what this is all about. It's next 10 years. What can we do to make that real change on the ground? Actually, the UN calls for pledging to mobilize finance. It's calling for enhancing national implementation. It's also calling to strengthen institutions to achieve these goals so that we can achieve most of them by 2030. So accelerated efforts are very, very vital, needed to ensure that we move forward faster than we have moved till now. All of us need inspiration. We need a certain amount of creativity, not just at the individual level, but also at the local, state, country level, as well as the global level. We need the young of this country, of any country, involved. I always said, and I still maintain it, after you cross the age of 30, you're an old fuddy-duddy. Yeah, you might feel young. They say that 60 is the new youth, but no. Your brains are sort of set in a certain fashion. Changes come about because of the young, you know, because they have no fear. They have no this yoke called experience hanging around their necks, which in a way experience is good, in a way it's not so good. So they are fearless in terms of taking on things and voicing their opinions. So we have to look at our youth, our academia, working with them, the private sector working with them, and all the stakeholders, including the government, working with them. And without concerted effort by everybody, I don't think we will be achieving much. And the transformation that COVID has shown, that we have shown some resilience in this country and many other countries for a thing that we can't see, but has created havoc. So we should learn from this. How do we reduce the risk for the future of any kind of maybe a pandemic, maybe a natural disaster, and how do we ensure that we avoid this, at least by working for the next 15, 20 years. So we will have to work at an unstoppable pace. There's no point in talking. For me, I often say this again, much to the anger of some of my fellow citizens of India. We are great in thinking, we are great in planning, we are great in putting out things. When it comes to implementation, we suck. We have no idea of how to implement on time. And that's what we need to do. It can be a small idea, it can be something, but get it implemented. We seem to have a kind of a thing where everybody points finger at the other person, and this is happening everywhere, in organizations, small organizations. That's because of I think I don't know what I attribute it to, but we need to get out of that mindset and say, okay, we will help each other. Mind you, the only mammal that has been given the power of thought and the power of sacrifice is a human being. Other mammals have a power of sacrifice if their young are threatened, otherwise they run away. But the human being has these two, and we don't seem to be using it well. So at times, we have to sub-optimize an individual to optimize a collective. So we need to be very careful about that. We need to identify risks that are coming about, and it requires each of us to take action individually and collectively, and putting the collective ahead of the individual. And that's not easy to come by. Over a period of time, I think we were seeing this many, many thousands of years ago, but we have seen that change. So What is so urgent about it? I'll give you an example of water again. If we start changing our practices of water, by the time we stop deterioration, it might take another 25 years. So are we ready to wait for that long and see things going down? So how do we end extreme poverty today? Look at the way poverty is spreading. Even during COVID, the rich became richer, the poor became poorer. And that there are studies, enough studies for that. So what's going to happen if somebody loses hope? If a person loses hope, they have nothing to live for, you're going to have problems, social unrest all over. You're going to have social unrest all over. And I always say this, and I've been saying this for the last 30 years. And when it comes to India, the red flags are not going to be from Kathmandu to Khammam, it will be from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, because there is no hope. So we need to build this hope, we need to be quick about it. We need leaders who are accountable. And that is a scarce commodity. I'm not talking of only political leaders, I'm talking of leaders in organizations, leaders in corporates. You got to be accountable. You got to take, the buck stops with you. So it's very important that we hold our politicians also to be accounted for what they're doing. We need to be actually charge ourselves and see if we have innovative solutions so that we can move forward in a much better fashion. Sustainable innovation is something that we need to have. We are good at innovating small patches, but how do you sustain this thinking? How do you keep going forward? That's especially in terms of, so you can innovate products, you can innovate some technology. The question of supporting SDGs is one of money. How do you financially innovate to ensure that we have enough money kept aside? So what we did, we experimented in Grundfos just before I retired. That thing is continuing, and I'm once in a while keeping a tab on it. What if we as a corporate take a part of our business now, and later on it can be the full business, and say that if my goal is to make an EBITDA or a profit of whatever you want to call it, of 20%, I will work in this sector at 5%, so that I cover my cost. And I will sort of put out products or services which directly impact the SDG in terms of, for us it is 6 and 13, if it can be anything else. We also worked with 1. What would then happen? I will really bring out a triple bottom line, showing the financial and social impact on the people and the planet, and see what impact I have created in this world. If all corporates start doing it in a small fashion and slowly this builds up, you will soon find that the purpose of business will be just beyond the business of making money. And every business has to have this purpose. We need to go beyond just making money. How much time do we have? No, I'm just making sure that we got to keep time. We have never let go of that. Yeah, so this is something that we need to. So when you look at these kind of investments in terms of money, time, we also have to make space for our communities. Here we are fighting, whose God is better, whose religion is better. I mean, God doesn't care about all this, and we do. I don't think this concept of God, according to me, was made by man because it makes us comfortable, but it's okay, it's good. There is something beyond us which is running this whole universe, which is even beyond imagination. But having said that, imagine the politics that will be there in heaven if there are many gods. If there are 2, there are politics, if 3, there's chaos. So we need to focus on making space for our communities, especially with our young people. All this has to get meshed into one another if you really want to see CSR, and if you really want to see the next decade making some meaning for the next few generations. Quite a few of us, except for the young out here, we are all has-beens. We have lived most of our life. I can see a lot of grey hair, bald heads, all of things. We have lived most of our life. We don't need any changes. We perhaps will live, but most of us are in love saying, okay, we had such great time. The world has changed now. It should be like the old. Why? That was good for us. It's not good for the new people. So let's make the world good for the young. And that is what is needed. So we need global action. We need to secure better leadership. I have no qualms in telling a guy like Trump was horrible for this world. He denied even climate change. You can't have leaders like that who are so sort of self-centered. We need more resources, smarter solutions, without doubt. Locally, how do we embed some of the traditional practices we had? How do we embed this? There was a lot of traditional knowledge in India when it comes to either saving water or buildings that were intrinsically energy efficient and kept things cool even in hot places. We ignored everything and moved, blindly aping the West. I'm nothing against aping the West, the good ones, but why do we give up something good that was there? So how do we bring these traditions back? How do we bring them into policies? We have a consultant here. How do you bring them into the policies? Budgets. Great policies, great thing, no budgets. What happens? Nothing can be done. Let me again tell you, I was talking to the Secretary Water Resources in Delhi a couple of days back and also last week. I said the government has fantastic plans of putting in infrastructure. You put a lot of money, but you put zero budget on maintenance. So all the money you put in 5 years is gone. And then again you start looking, why don't we start putting money on maintenance every year, year on year? So you need to maintain what you set up. We need to look at regulatory frameworks for governments, the civic and local authorities. Let's take Tamil Nadu, madam. What does a town planner or a country planner do? He's a glorious approval giver. He looks at and gives approval, so this can be done. We should train the town planners and country planners to look at 25, 30-year, 50-year plans and ensure that water bodies are not disturbed, runoffs are not disturbed, certain areas are kept aside, zoning is done right, the right factories or businesses are put up in the right places, the right crops are grown in the right places. It's a holistic approach to things. And that's what SDG and CSR is all about. You move all your CSR money towards getting this country to do better. So we've been talking to the governments, and they are also realizing that they need to have a holistic approach, especially when it comes to water. I always say that if Chennai had 300 tanks, and now it's, I think, 80 tanks, and some are getting revived. And we have put all our buildings in where the runoffs are, and the water is not going to ask you permission whether I can come into your house when the floods come. You have taken my place. Sorry, it's mine. So we need to be a little more careful about. So regulatory frameworks are important. Then people as individuals, as civil society, as media, as private sectors, as unions that are there, they are quite powerful, and all other stakeholders. What are we going to do to generate a movement that cannot be stopped? And that, like they say, each drop makes an ocean, and we are all drops. So let's not think that just because we are individuals we can't do. At least around us, if you start looking at, I think a lot of young people get enthused. So this is where we need to sort of be careful about. I also already spoke about measurement and verification. There's one thing that I would like to talk about, inclusivity, before I stop. We tried an experiment 10 years ago. I was invited by a school which has autistic children and adults. And it was just a chance invite, and I was there. There was an annual day. I was just sitting talking. I heard a set of parents talking about the child who was then, I think, about 20 years old, saying in Tamil, if all of you understand, what happens to this? So it just struck me. I spoke to them. I said, let's try this out. You put your teacher there, sensitize our people in our factory. We will give 3 of these people jobs and train them and see how they work. There are 3 of them. 5 came in, 1 died because of other issues, 1 was not able to handle. There are 3 of them working today after 10 years, earning the same salary as anybody else. And you should see the video that they have made. Somewhere I've sent a link and you can have. The parents are so happy. And they say they are so proud They say the others are jealous of us, saying our kid is now working in a multinational, earning more money than their wards. So it's important that we focus on this. Now what we decided, because of this, we added a few more people. We have decided next year we are going to cordon off about 1,200 square feet in our shop floor, make it a training center. We are asking the school to bring a bus in or get a van, get 5 or 6 people, and they get trained. Some of them can get absorbed, some of them can work elsewhere. They get trained and they will work. It's a assisted workshop, and we will pay for what they produce. So it's not very difficult. And mind you, I was asking my guys, how do these people work? Autistic people, they are very focused on repetitive jobs. They are much more productive than anybody you can see. And it's amazing that they are so mainstream now. So it's just picking up something and doing what you need to do. So the last 15 years we've been focusing on water, on energy, and we said, okay, let's also focus on people, especially the underprivileged, and especially if they are mentally challenged. So it's worked well. So ultimately, what we need to do in terms of our resources, we need to manage our resources well. We need to ensure that we put in the right kind of money and effort. We should also stop conspicuous consumption. COVID has taught us that we can live with much less. I see this from every corporate I speak, every person I think, we can live with much less. We were simply having conspicuous consumption. So what can we do to reduce this? We don't throw away things, we repair things. Because we were a repair side of society, we become a throwaway society, we just go back because certain things, why do you throw it away? Because you injure the earth. So there are many things like this. You recycle or you sort of upcycle things. You take old things and make new things out of it. And there is an entire supermarket in Sweden, very close to the municipal recycling yard, where they pick things, and there are designers and design schools upcycling things, and people are buying it. Why do you have to buy something new? When we built our green building, I asked for recycled, and people were very upset. We don't sell used things. I said, no, I want used things. I want used furniture. I want rubble come from a building where you're broken. If you've taken timber somewhere, I want that. I don't want to get fresh one and saying, let's do this. So that's one thing. Remake, upcycle. The other thing is the many hours that you say refuse. Reduce the consumption that you have. All the time, look at it. I just had a young fellow from IIT who showed me some new nozzles for water taps. So instead of for all the taps that you use only to wash hands, it gives a nice mist. So I bought all the nozzles and fitted up in my house. Of course, there was a lot of opposition from the maids. I said, you use your taps to wash this thing. And those nozzles have cut my water consumption down to 20% of the tap. So it's possible. So let's reduce. Then let's also remember all the time that we need to be, this goal is a moving goal post. The more we delay, the more it moves. That we need to be behind this day in and day out. You don't have to kill yourself, but little efforts, little changes that you make at home and in yourself would make a huge sort of difference. And also respect people's choices. Sometimes we become very evangelistic. That doesn't work. You can't force people into anything. You got to inspire people. So let's respect people's choices. Individually, everybody has his own choice. But if everybody slowly converges, and I'm sure we'll have a planet which is very different and much more sustainable. You know, in Grundfos, the person who created Grundfos, or who was the founder, he had only one sentence that he left behind. We would like to leave behind this planet a greener, more energized one than the one we inherited. So the entire company is working on that basis. But it's not difficult for others to work on that basis. So with this, I think I will stop. It was a pleasure coming here and speaking to all of you, and I'm sure there are others listening on too. So it's not something that is that you have to really plod and be very passionate and push things. Small steps, bite-sized chunks as they call it. if you start, putting it into your mouth or you doing, you will see that large changes can come about. Very simple to the Kaizen concept in factories. Small little changes every day. Every day. Can we do something better than we did yesterday? That's all that matters. And then you'll see the changes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks so much for setting the context so comprehensively so that we take on from here. We can possibly take just one or two questions. Is there anyone in the audience who's got that question slip ready? Yeah, there's one. Could you pick it up, please? We also have one odd question on social media that we will see once we finish this. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question in this hall? Yeah, we have a couple of questions online. We can take that as well.
Hello. Can you hear? Yeah, the question is, given the fact that all CSR activities are important, would it be ideal to have an apex monitoring authority to allocate awarding to the priorities to amplify allocations where it is required the most? This again would bring it into a realm of what you call control. So while it may be good, there are already certain private agencies, including CII, which gives out CSR awards. So we could do that in MMA too, rather than have some authority, because the moment you say an authority, you will find politicians jumping in and opposing it as much what is happening with the farm laws today. I'm a son of a farmer. My father used to talk about these draconian laws which had to be removed 50 years ago. 50 years later, the laws have been removed, and today we have people fighting it. So I would say that more and more private bodies like these, associations, societies, if they come up with this to award people with good CSR efforts, it may have a better impact than having an authority, an apex monitoring body. I don't know how, maybe Dr. Sujata could sort of say what the government is thinking of. But yeah, they could also have an award, but rather than a monitoring body, because then becomes a lot of interference as to what should be done, what should not be done. So personally, I'm not for it.
Thank you, sir. We got two questions from social media, and both of them are actually relating to the corona and its effect. So the question alludes to the fact that with the pandemic causing so much of problems all over, do you think the CSR funding will get affected because of this? And how are we going to deal with this?
It is already affected. All the funds that were there, see, remember that every company has a certain budget, and the pandemic affected their business. Most companies had losses. March, April and May were a washout for most companies, and you can never recover that. So having said that, the money that they had for CSR moved towards COVID pandemic, and actually the long-term efforts they were supporting, even that suffered. There is a clear issue there. And even if now when I'm talking to corporates, it's very difficult for them to fund anything now. But hopefully the recovery has started, and hopefully we'll be able to sort of get back to all those things that we were supposed to have done. There's a lot of learning that has happened during COVID. One of the learnings is that we found that the same effort was being done in the same area by many, many people. So we said we should have some way of coordinating instead of an authority, some kind of coordination where the government can say, hey, in this area only this is required. Let's not have 4 people doing the same thing. So these are some learnings that have come about, which can be used in other areas too. But it has impacted, without doubt, very, very seriously.
Right, sir. Thanks. One, Mr. Vasant, Resource Head Lakeview, he wants to know, assisted learning spaces, is it available for all social kids?
See, we have just started assisted, not living. Assisted living is for people who are in old age homes and things like that. We have started assisted, what you call manufacturing in terms of assisted vocation, I would say, where we have a controlled atmosphere for people like these. We have coordinators who understand them. We have a bunch of people around who are trained to handle these people, and we train them and allow them to produce, and they get paid for their produce. So they have a feeling of self-esteem that they're earning, which we have found in the few people that we have helped. Great self-esteem. They're so confident. And the best part of it is all these three every year contribute back a donation to the school that they came out of, which means it's a self-supporting kind of movement, and that's what we're trying. It's an experiment. We don't know, but we hope it works, and we hope others also follow it.
Thank you, sir. So one question to Mr. Ranganath from Muralidhar from this hall. Present decade, he says, the solid waste management has become a big problem. How can CSR help resolve this?
Who creates solid waste? You and me. If you don't want to sort of segregate it in our homes and throw it on the road, it is going to be a problem. So the first thing that we need to do is let's start in our homes. I've tried my best in my own home to have 3 bins, but to tell my maid, I said, nothing doing, you'll have to segregate it. We need to sort of work at that level. I find that the new ones in Chennai, this Arbasier Sumit, they come with segregated boxes, and they are segregating outside, which is a good move. Yes, I mean, some CSR funds can go towards that, but most people think predominantly it is the business of the municipality to do it. But like I said, we can't say that everything the government only has to do. We have to give a helping hand, because after all, we are creating the waste. If you don't create so much waste, when I said reduce, it also creates less waste. And if you are careful about it, for instance, your kitchen waste can be easily converted to manure. At home, I've seen so many people doing that. Now, why do we dump it? And it also smells. So things have to start at home, and we all have to work together.
Right, got it. So I think that brings us to the end of this first session. I think may I request President MMA, Mr. Ravichandran Puri, to present memento. Yeah. To Mr. N.K. Ranganath, please. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of